I bought a beach house to enjoy my retirement, quiet mornings, sea air, and memories of my late wife keeping me company. But when my daughter arrived unannounced with 5 cars, 10 guests, and a hidden plan to claim everything I'd built, peace turned into a storm I never saw coming. What began as a family visit became a lesson in love, betrayal, and the price of trust. You won't believe how it ended. Welcome, my friends, and thank you for joining me today. Before we begin, I'd love to know, where are you watching from? Drop your city and country in the comments, give this video a thumbs up, and hit subscribe with the notification bell so you never miss another powerful story like this one. Now let's begin. When I bought the beach house in Clearwater, I wasn't just buying a home, I was buying silence. After 40 years of early alarms, traffic, and job site noise, I wanted peace. Real peace. The kind Brenda used to talk about. We'd spent most of our marriage dreaming of a place by the water. A home where mornings began with coffee and sea breeze, not conference calls. She wanted white shutters, blue trim, and a swing that faced the sunrise. I made her that promise. She passed before I could keep it. So when I signed the papers 2 years after her funeral, I whispered to her photo. We made it, Bren. We finally made it. Those first few weeks felt like heaven. My days had rhythm again, quiet, gentle rhythm. I'd wake before dawn, pour my coffee, and watch the light rise over the Gulf. Sometimes I'd even catch myself talking to her as if she was still there beside me, telling me to water the plants or fix the porch rail. Every sound became familiar, the hum of the refrigerator, the waves brushing the shore, the old clock ticking in the hallway. It was just me, the sea, and the ghosts of good memories. I thought I'd spend my last years that way, quietly, content, and alone. Then the phone rang. It was Samantha. My only child. Dad! Guess what? I'm coming to visit! Her voice was bright, cheerful, the kind that makes you smile before you even think. I laughed. Well, it's about time. When? Oh, maybe this weekend. We all need a little break. We? I didn't think much of that word at the time. I should have. Friday came with the sound of engines. I was out on the porch, sipping my evening coffee, when the first car pulled up. Then another. And another. 5 cars total. Out spilled Samantha, her husband David, their kids, David's parents, a couple of close friends, and a golden retriever that sprinted into my garden like it owned the place. Dad! Surprise! She shouted, waving like she'd just landed at a family reunion. My jaw tightened. That's quite the crowd you've brought. Oh, it's just for a few days, she said breezily. You have so much space here, Dad. It'll be fun. They carried boxes inside before I could answer. My peace, my quiet little dream, vanished in minutes. That first night was chaos. Music, laughter, and the smell of grilled meat filled the air. Someone spilled wine on my deck. The dog tore through my fishing net. David talked loudly about his real estate wins, as if I should be impressed. I smiled through it. For the kids' sake. For Samantha's. But as I sat alone later that night, staring out at the dark horizon, I realized something unsettling. My house no longer felt like mine. The next morning, Samantha found me in the kitchen, halfway through my coffee. She had that look, confident, casual, rehearsed. Dad, she said, I've been thinking. You should probably put the house in my name, you know, just in case something happens to you. It would make things easier for everyone. Her tone was sweet, almost innocent. But the words? They cut deep. I set my mug down slowly. Easier for who, exactly? She laughed. Oh, Dad, don't be so serious. It's just paperwork. But her eyes didn't match her smile. And in that instant I saw a truth I never wanted to see. My daughter, the person Brenda and I raised with love and sacrifice, was thinking more about inheritance than family. I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I just nodded. You might be right, Sam, I said softly. Maybe it's time I make things easier. Her face brightened. Really? Sure, I said, forcing a smile. We'll talk about it soon. But inside, something had shifted. The quiet man she thought she could take advantage of had just begun to think differently. I looked out the window at the ocean, calm and endless, and whispered, "Let's see what you really came for, Sam. What would you do if your own child tried to take what you worked for your whole life?" It's strange how quickly a house can change when the wrong voices fill it. Within 24 hours, my quiet beach home sounded like a carnival. Every corner buzzed with conversation, laughter, footsteps, barking, and the occasional clatter of something breaking. My porch swing creaked under people who didn't even ask to sit. My fridge emptied like it was feeding an army. And the worst part? Everyone acted like they belonged there. Samantha's mother-in-law rearranged my living room furniture to open up the space. David's father decided my backyard grill was too small and offered to upgrade it, with my money, of course. And Samantha, my daughter, floated around smiling, trying to keep everyone happy, pretending not to notice the damage being done. It wasn't the noise that bothered me. It was the entitlement. Brenda would have hated it. She was a kind woman, but she believed in boundaries. I could almost hear her voice in my head, "Alex, don't let them walk all over you." I tried to stay out of the way, reading on the porch, fixing things they broke, pretending the chaos didn't bother me. But every night when the laughter faded and the house fell silent, I could feel the weight of it, how quickly love can turn into advantage. On the third night, I went into the kitchen for a glass of water. The lights were off except for a faint glow from the dining room. That's where I heard them. David and two of his friends were sitting at the table with a laptop open, whispering like children caught doing something they shouldn't. "This place is worth a fortune," one of them said. "You could flip it and double that in 6 months." David grinned. "Trust me, man. Once it's in Sam's name, it's ours. The old man doesn't even realize what he's sitting on." The words hit harder than I expected. Ours. Not hers. Not mine. Ours. I stayed silent in the hallway, my fingers tightening around the glass. Samantha walked in just then, holding her phone. "David, stop talking about that stuff here. He could hear you." David laughed. "Relax, Sam. He's asleep. He's probably dreaming about fishing or whatever old men dream about." She hesitated, then said quietly, "He's still my dad." David didn't even look up. "And soon he'll be your inheritance. Think about the kids." That was enough. I walked away before I could say something I'd regret. The next morning, Samantha acted as if nothing had happened. She made breakfast, pancakes, her mother's old recipe, and placed a plate in front of me like she was 10 years old again. "Morning, Dad," she said with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. I took a bite, pretending everything was fine. "Morning." I looked around the kitchen. Strangers were sitting at my table. My grandkids were running through the hall. David was scrolling through his phone, laughing at something I didn't care to know. For the first time since I'd moved there, I wanted to leave my own house. Later that afternoon, I walked along the beach to clear my head. The wind was cool, the waves gentle, almost mocking in their calm. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found a name I hadn't called in years: Robert Hayes. Robert had been my attorney when I sold my company. Honest man, sharp as ever, and one of the few people I still trusted. He answered on the second ring. "Alexander Ford. Haven't heard that name in too long." "Robert," I said, keeping my voice low, "I need your help. But it has to stay between us." He didn't hesitate. "Of course. What's going on?" "I might be signing over my house soon," I said. "But I want to make sure it's done properly, with a few special conditions." Robert chuckled. "You always did like the fine print." "Not this time," I said. "This one's for family." When I hung up, the sky had turned orange, the sun dipping toward the horizon. I stood there, letting the waves brush my feet, thinking about Brenda, how she'd have handled this. I could almost hear her whisper, "Don't react, Alex. Think. Always think first." And that's exactly what I planned to do. That night, as laughter filled my living room again, I smiled, not out of joy, but because for the first time since Samantha arrived, I finally had a plan. Would you stay silent to catch them in the act, or confront them immediately? Tell me in the comments section. 3 days after that phone call with Robert, the mood in the house began to shift, not for them, but for me. I stopped resisting their noise. I smiled more. I laughed at David's empty jokes. I even let Samantha believe she was helping me by organizing my files and cleaning my study. The calmer I acted, the safer they felt. And the safer they felt, the more careless they became. Robert had emailed me the documents that morning, a trust agreement, drawn up quietly under my name, with clauses only he and I understood. It looked like a simple transfer of property. But it wasn't. Once signed, the house would move into a temporary family trust under my control, and anyone listed as a co-resident would legally become a tenant, subject to removal whenever I decided. Robert called it creative. I called it justice with a smile. That evening, I prepared dinner, grilled salmon, Brenda's recipe. The smell filled the house, and for once, the noise felt almost bearable. Everyone gathered around the table, hungry and happy. "Dad, you didn't have to cook," Samantha said, kissing my cheek. I smiled. "Just wanted to do something special. It feels good to have the house full again." David raised his glass. "To family," he said. I raised mine too. "To family." Robert arrived 15 minutes later. He looked sharp, gray suit, polished shoes, that lawyer calm that always meant something serious was about to happen. "Robert Hayes," I said loudly, pretending surprise. "Everyone, this is an old friend. He's handling some estate paperwork for me." David straightened up, suddenly interested. "Estate?" Samantha blinked. "Wait, Dad, tonight?" "Why not?" I said cheerfully. "It's just a small formality. Robert said it'd only take a few signatures." Robert smiled politely. "Mr. Ford, if you'll just sign here, and here." He placed the documents on the table. I made sure everyone could see the heading, Property Transfer and Family Trust Agreement. Samantha's eyes widened. "You're really doing it?" David leaned forward. "You're transferring it now?" I chuckled softly. "You said it would make things easier, Sam. I want to make sure you and the kids are secure. This house should stay in the family, right?" They exchanged glances. Samantha hesitated, but greed always moves faster than guilt. "You're sure, Dad?" "Never been surer." She took the pen from Robert's hand and signed where he indicated. David followed, his grin smug and unearned. When the last signature hit the page, Robert gathered the papers neatly. "All done," he said. "Everything will be processed by noon tomorrow." "Perfect," I said, forcing a smile. "Dinner's getting cold. Let's eat." The rest of the night passed in a blur of celebration, wine, laughter, and empty gratitude. Samantha hugged me tight, whispering, "You're the best dad ever." I smiled and hugged her back, but my eyes drifted over her shoulder toward Robert, who gave a small nod from the doorway. The plan was in motion. When everyone went to bed, I sat alone in the living room. The lights were low, the air still. The papers were gone, sealed in Robert's briefcase, but their meaning lingered in the air. I thought about Brenda again, what she would say if she saw what her family had become. Part of me ached with guilt. Another part felt proud. For once, I wasn't being taken advantage of. The next morning, Samantha was up early, humming as she made coffee. She looked genuinely happy, maybe for the first time since she arrived. "Sleep well?" I asked. "Better than ever," she said. "Feels like things are finally settling into place." I nodded. "Yes. Everything's falling right where it should." David joined us, stretching. "So, what happens next?" "Papers go through, house becomes ours, right?" Samantha elbowed him playfully. "David!" He shrugged. "What?" "It's true." I smiled, holding my cup steady. "Let's just say the next few days will bring clarity." They didn't notice the edge in my voice. They were too busy planning beach parties and posting selfies in front of their new house. That afternoon, I watched them from the porch, laughing, chasing the dog, completely unaware that by noon tomorrow, they'd no longer be guests. They'd be tenants. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the water gold, I whispered to myself, "You wanted ownership, Sam. Let's see how it feels when it's not what you expected." Then I smiled, not the smile of a defeated man, but of one who finally remembered what power felt like. Do you think I am going too far, or just protecting myself from betrayal? Let me know in the comments section. Morning arrived quieter than usual, too quiet. No music, no chatter, no clinking dishes. The kind of silence that follows a storm no one saw coming. I woke before dawn, brewed my coffee, and watched the sun rise over the gulf. It should have been peaceful, but all I felt was anticipation. At noon, the trust would finalize. By law, every name on those documents would change their standing in this house. They'd go from family to occupants. By the time Samantha came downstairs, I was sitting at the kitchen counter with a calm I hadn't felt in weeks. "Morning, Dad," she said cheerfully, pouring herself coffee. "You're up early." "I always am," I replied. "Old habits." She smiled. "It's a beautiful day, isn't it?" I looked at her, the same bright smile Brenda once had, only sharper now, more controlled. "It really is." By 8 o'clock, the house was alive again. David's parents were packing beach bags. The kids were fighting over sunscreen. David was barking orders like he owned the place. Then, at exactly 8:47 a.m., my phone buzzed. It was Robert. He sent a message that read, "All signed, sealed, and delivered. They're officially tenants as of noon. You might want to step out for a bit." I smiled. "Thanks, Robert." At 10 a.m., I grabbed my keys and wallet. "Heading into town," I told them. David looked up from his phone. "Want me to come?" "No need," I said. "Just a few errands." I left them there, laughing, cooking, planning their new life, and drove down to the pier. For 2 hours, I sat on a bench overlooking the water, letting the salt air settle my thoughts. I wasn't proud. I wasn't angry. I just felt finished. When I returned home around noon, the driveway looked different. 2 moving vans were parked outside, their drivers standing near the porch, holding papers. Samantha ran out, panic flashing across her face. "Dad! What's happening? These men say we're being evicted." I got out of the truck slowly, the wind catching my shirt. "Evicted? That's a strong word." "Dad, they said they spoke to your lawyer." "They said?" I raised a hand gently. "They're right." The words froze everyone in place. David stepped forward, face red. "You tricked us? After everything we've done for you?" I laughed softly. "What exactly have you done for me, David? Besides treat my home like a hotel?" He clenched his fists. "You can't do this." "I can," I said calmly. "And I did. The documents you signed weren't a transfer. They were a temporary family trust. You're not owners. You're tenants. And your stay expires today." Samantha looked like she'd been punched. "Dad, why?" I took a deep breath. "Because you stopped being my daughter the moment you started seeing me as an obstacle. I gave you love, security, everything I could, and you came here to take more. Brenda would have cried if she saw what you've become." Tears welled in her eyes. "I just wanted to protect the house." "No, Sam. You wanted to own it." For a moment, no one spoke. Even the waves seemed to hold still. Then David grabbed his bag and muttered something under his breath as he stomped toward the van. His parents followed, grumbling. The kids cried, confused and scared. Samantha stayed behind, her voice trembling. "I didn't know you'd push it this far." I nodded. "Neither did I." She wiped her face and whispered, "You got what you wanted." I looked out toward the water. "No, Sam. I got what I needed." The movers finished packing. One by one, the cars pulled out of the driveway. When the last engine faded, I stood there alone again, the way it was meant to be. I walked inside. The house was quiet, finally breathing again. But the peace I'd missed so much didn't feel the same. It felt heavier, lonelier. On the counter lay Samantha's coffee mug, half empty, lipstick stained, still warm. I stared at it for a long moment before washing it and placing it back on the shelf. Justice, I realized, doesn't always feel like victory. But sometimes, it's the only thing left to keep your soul from breaking. At this point, don't tell me you are yet to hit the subscribe button. Please do, and tell me if I should have allowed my daughter to own the house. For the first time in weeks, the house was quiet again. No music, no laughter, no footsteps thundering down the hallway. Just silence, the kind I used to pray for. But silence has a way of turning on you when you've done something that feels right and wrong at the same time. That night, I walked through every room, like a man checking his memories. The couch still had an impression where Samantha used to sit. The faint scent of her perfume lingered in the guest room. I found a seashell bracelet one of the grandkids had dropped under the coffee table. I'd gotten my peace back, but it didn't feel like victory. It felt like distance. The next morning, I made my usual coffee and stepped onto the porch. The sea was calm, stretching out endlessly, but my thoughts weren't. That's when I noticed an envelope sticking out of the mailbox, thick, official, with my name printed neatly on the front. From the law office of Robert Hayes. I frowned. He'd already emailed me everything about the trust. What else could this be? Inside were 2 sets of papers, one from the county records office, and another with a short handwritten note from Robert. Alexander, found this while finalizing the trust filing. Thought you should see it. Then he signed his initials. I unfolded the first page, a property deed. Only it didn't list me as the owner. It listed Brenda Ford. The date hit me like cold water. 10 years ago. The year before she died. I read it again, thinking it must be a mistake. Brenda had bought the property under her name, not ours. Not mine. Hers. And tucked behind it was a letter, yellowed slightly with age, addressed to the executor of the estate of Brenda M. Ford. I'd never seen it before. I sat down on the porch step and opened it carefully, my hands shaking. It was a short statement, notarized and clear. Upon my passing, the property at 48 Clearwater Cove shall transfer to my daughter, Samantha Ford, under the condition that Alexander Ford shall retain full residency and rights until his passing. I read it twice. Then a third time. The world went silent except for the waves crashing softly against the shore. Brenda, my Brenda, had planned everything years before I ever thought about revenge. The house wasn't mine to protect. It was Samantha's by law. My name was never meant to be on the deed. I'd spent weeks outsmarting my daughter, only to realize the woman I loved most had already outsmarted us both. For the first time in a long time, I didn't know what to feel. Anger? Guilt? Betrayal? Maybe all three. I called Robert. He answered immediately. Robert, I said quietly, did you know about this? He hesitated. I didn't, not until last night. Brenda filed the deed separately. It was never part of your joint assets. I leaned back in my chair, staring out at the horizon. She planned for Samantha to have it? Yes, Robert said. But she made sure you'd never lose your right to live there. She must have wanted both of you to have peace. Peace. That word again. When the call ended, I sat there for a long time, just listening to the waves. Brenda had always been the heart between us. Even when Samantha and I drifted apart, Brenda found ways to keep us connected. And somehow, even after she was gone, she tried again. Only now I'd broken that fragile bridge she left behind. That evening, I walked through the house once more. I looked at the framed photos on the wall. Brenda holding Samantha as a baby, the three of us laughing at a lake years ago. I could almost hear her voice, Alex, don't let pride ruin what love can still fix. But maybe it already had. Just as I was about to turn in for the night, headlights cut through the window blinds. A car pulled into the driveway. For a moment, I thought it was Samantha. Instead, it was a courier. He stepped out, holding another envelope. Mr. Ford? Yes. Delivery for you. Urgent. I signed and took it. The return label made my stomach tighten. From the law offices of David and Green. I tore it open. Inside was a court summons. Plaintiff, Samantha Ford. Defendant, Alexander Ford. I sank into my chair, reading the claim, fraudulent manipulation of estate property. My daughter wasn't just angry. She was taking me to court. And in that moment I realized, revenge never ends clean. It always circles back home. If you discovered your late spouse made a secret decision that changed everything, would you feel betrayed or protected? Let me know how you would react. The following morning, I couldn't bring myself to open the curtains. The sound of the waves, which once calmed me, now felt like a reminder, steady, endless, indifferent. A court summons. My own daughter dragged me into a legal fight over a home that wasn't even mine to begin with. I'd expected anger, maybe silence. But a lawsuit? That was something else entirely. The phone rang just past 8. Robert again. I assume you got it, he said. I did. He sighed. I spoke with her lawyer. David's pulling the strings. He wants to prove you acted with intent to defraud her. I laughed bitterly. David couldn't spell intent. Be that as it may, Robert said, this could get ugly. You might want to come in. There's something else you should see. I hesitated. What now? Just come, Alex. Trust me. By noon, I was in Robert's office, a quiet room lined with law books, family photos, and the faint smell of coffee. He handed me a manila folder. What's this? I asked. Something your wife left behind. We didn't know about it until the court contacted us. I opened the folder. Inside was a handwritten note from Brenda, dated just 2 months before she died. If this reaches you, Alex, it means things didn't go as peacefully as I hoped. I bought the house in my name to protect you from the financial mess your business was in at the time. I didn't want you to lose the last thing you worked for. The plan was for Samantha to inherit it, but only when you were ready to let go. If she's fighting you, I failed her somewhere along the way. Remind her who we were, not what we owned. My chest tightened. Robert watched me quietly. She was trying to protect you both. I nodded slowly, rereading the note. Brenda had known everything, the debts I hid from her, the sleepless nights when the company nearly collapsed, the shame I buried under hard work. And yet, instead of confronting me, she'd made her own plan, one that covered both my pride and our daughter's future. But now, the very thing she built to hold us together was tearing us apart. I rubbed my eyes. She always thought 2 steps ahead. Robert leaned forward. Alex, if we show this note in court, it could change everything. But it also means you'll have to tell Samantha the truth, all of it. I swallowed hard. That I wasn't the perfect father she thinks I was? That none of us are, he said softly. I left his office with the letter tucked safely in my jacket pocket. Outside, the Florida heat pressed down like a weight. I didn't drive straight home. Instead, I stopped at the cemetery. Brenda's grave sat beneath a palm tree, simple and peaceful. I stood there for a long time, the wind tugging gently at the edges of the letter. You planned for everything, I whispered. But not this. Somewhere deep down, I could almost hear her voice, calm, steady, the way she used to sound when she talked me off a ledge. You don't win by proving you're right, Alex. You win by keeping love alive. That night, back at the beach house, I couldn't sleep. I sat in the living room, lights off, listening to the creak of the walls, the rhythmic hum of the ocean. Around midnight, headlights flashed outside again. For a moment, I thought it was the process server returning. But when I opened the door, Samantha stood there. Alone. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, hands trembling. Dad, she said quietly. We need to talk. I didn't answer. I just stepped aside and let her in. She glanced around, as if seeing the house differently now. David doesn't know I'm here. He pushed me into that lawsuit. I stayed silent. I found something, she said, pulling a folded piece of paper from her bag. It's from Mom. She handed it to me. It was a copy of the same note Robert had shown me earlier. Her voice cracked. She wanted us to share this place. Not fight over it. For the first time in weeks, I saw my daughter, not the schemer, not the woman who tried to take what was mine, but the little girl Brenda used to read bedtime stories to. I nodded slowly. Then let's start fixing what's left. She nodded, tears spilling freely now. I'm sorry, Dad. I didn't answer right away. I just looked toward Brenda's photo on the mantel and whispered, You always find a way to come home. If you were Alexander, would you reveal the truth and risk losing pride, or keep the secret to protect your daughter's image of you? A week later, I found myself sitting in the back of a courtroom, gray walls, cold air, a judge who looked as tired as I felt. Samantha sat across the aisle, hands clasped in her lap, eyes fixed on the floor. David wasn't beside her. For that, I was grateful. Robert leaned toward me. Are you sure you want to go through with this? I came to hear her out, I said quietly. Not to win. The judge entered, and the session began. The clerk called the case, Ford versus Ford. I almost laughed at the sound of it. My name, fighting itself. Samantha's attorney, the same man who'd sent the summons, stood first. He launched into legal jargon, deceit, manipulation, transfer of property. Words that made me sound like a stranger, not a father. Then he called Samantha to the stand. She looked small up there, her confidence gone. The judge asked her to state her case. She took a breath and looked at me. Your Honor, I'd like to withdraw the complaint. The room fell silent. Even the attorney froze. The judge frowned. You're sure? Yes, she said firmly. I filed this case out of anger, not the truth. My mother left letters that changed everything. She reached into her bag and handed the judge a worn envelope. This is her handwriting. It explains what she did and why. The judge skimmed the paper, then nodded toward Robert. Would you like this entered into the record? Robert smiled faintly. No need, Your Honor. That letter speaks for itself. The judge leaned back. Then this case is dismissed. Just like that, it was over. When we stepped outside, Samantha was waiting near the steps, clutching her purse like she didn't know what to do with her hands. I didn't know she wrote you one too, she said softly. She always knew how to reach us when words failed, I replied. She nodded, tears threatening again. David's gone. He didn't take the news well. Let him go, I said. He was never part of what mattered. We walked to my truck in silence. Before getting in, she turned to me. Mom wanted us to share the house, didn't she? She wanted us to share peace, I said. The house was just her way of forcing us to look at what we became. For the first time in months, Samantha smiled, not the kind that hid something, but the one I remembered from years ago, when she was still innocent enough to laugh without reason. That evening, we went back to the beach house together. The sun was setting low, the sky bleeding orange into the horizon. Inside, everything was still. I pulled out Brenda's letter from my desk and handed it to Samantha. Keep it, I said. You'll understand it better than I can now. She unfolded it gently, her fingers tracing Brenda's handwriting. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she whispered. She really believed in us. She still does, I said. We stood there in silence, two broken pieces finally fitting back together. When Samantha left later that night, she hugged me tighter than she had in years. I'll come by next weekend, she said. Just me and the kids. I smiled. I'll make pancakes. After she drove away, I sat on the porch. The ocean glowed silver under the moonlight, and for the first time, I didn't feel alone. I reached into my pocket, pulled out Brenda's wedding ring, the one I'd kept since her funeral, and held it against the fading light. You did it, Bren, I whispered. You brought her home. The wind shifted, carrying the sound of waves against the shore, soft and steady, almost like her laughter. I leaned back, closed my eyes, and let the night carry me. Revenge had given me closure. But forgiveness, that gave me peace. And somewhere, I knew Brenda was finally smiling again. Do you think forgiveness is harder than revenge, or stronger? If this story touched your heart, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you never miss another story that reminds us, peace doesn't come from winning. It comes from understanding.